Hey, what's right? Welcome back to News Dose, and Nintendo seems to be cooking up something fairly exciting for fans, but the only thing is that its delivery is going to possibly be a little bit unorthodox. However, this is still going to be a really nice option for anybody who plays on modern Nintendo consoles. Now, also, does Xbox have a winner on their hands? Of course, they entered the handheld market this week, and now that the dust has settled, there's been a lot of different reactions for their first attempt at a handheld. So make sure to stick around for all of that. But first, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with Double Fine's newest game, Bing Keeper. It definitely feels like this game's going a bit under the radar right now. In fact, its early Steam numbers aren't that promising, with only 165 concurrent peak players as of this recording. Now, with that said, it is a Game Pass game, so I do imagine the majority of its install base will likely be playing it through Game Pass. However, if you are interested in Keeper, reviews are currently rolling out, and it has a 78 overall score on Metacritic. So on one side, its reviews are a little bit middling, and that's because it's described as one of those artistic puzzle platformers. And the best way that I can describe these type of games is that they're often more of an emotional, atmospheric experience rather than them being genre defining in terms of gameplay. So, I mean, if you like those type of games, then you might possibly like Keeper, but do kind of keep that in mind. For me personally, I do like Double Fine, so I think that I will try this at some point. Obviously, right now there's just a ton of games to play, so I might have to put it on the back burner for the time being, but I'm always interested to see what Double Fine can create with all of their just bizarre ideas, and I mean, being a Lighthouse certainly tops the list of being just a bit different. Now, we also got an update for the Assassin's Creed franchise because the former franchise boss, Mark Alexis Cote, clarified that he was forced out of his position by Ubisoft. He took to LinkedIn and said, "From the messages of colleagues, friends, and fans, a recurring theme has emerged that I feel the need to clarify. Many of you have expressed surprise that I would choose to leave Assassin's Creed after so many years, especially given the passion that I still hold for it. The truth is simple. I did not make that choice. Ubisoft decided to transfer the leadership of the Assassin's Creed franchise to someone closer to its new organizational structure." And that is something to keep in mind with all of this. Ubisoft is going through some major changes with the addition of Tencent and their newly created subsidiary, Vantage Studios. Well, one of the franchises that they're overseeing is Assassin's Creed. So if they're not completely happy with something regarding that franchise, then yeah, this is kind of the result of that. Now, maybe this is all just because of some of the discourse for Shadows leading up to its release. We have heard reports about how that was alarming for some of their higher-ups, but there's also a case that maybe Shadows wasn't necessarily as successful as they led fans to believe. I mean, keep in mind that they never truly gave sales numbers, but rather they gave player numbers, which can be a little misleading in terms of realized success. We also don't know if it had much legs over time, which is important for modern AAA games. You know, these type of games do tend to be very front-loaded because of all of the initial hype, but a lot of times, the real success depends on if they can sustain those type of numbers for the weeks and months to come. Either which way, though, regardless if it had success or if it didn't have success, Ubisoft is going in a different direction for the Assassin's Creed series, and I mean, we'll see how that impacts the series going forward. Now, we also got a really bizarre statement from Xbox that's been catching a lot of attention online with the launch of the Xbox Ally, which we're going to talk about that here in just a moment, but Microsoft put out this statement which reads, "At Xbox, we define success by how much time players choose to spend with us, and the Xbox Ally handhelds are designed to make that time more seamless, flexible, and fun than ever before." And it's that first part that's been causing so much chaos online, because honestly, is this even true? I mean, it kind of comes off like they're trying to redefine what success actually is, because at the end of the day, as we all know, businesses, their goal, and especially when it comes to games, is to make you spend money. And, okay, to be fair, sometimes that reflects on how much time you spend with the game, but in a lot of cases, that's not really true. So a lot of people are side-eyeing this statement online, which I completely understand. However, for me personally, I'm not really surprised by this statement either, just because it's a very PR-like response, and what does PR like to do? Yeah, they like to spin things. They try to make anything and everything sound better than it is, and I mean, whoever wrote this up probably felt like this was a great way to make fans think that Microsoft is your gaming friend. We just want to spend time with you. And, let me just tell you this right now. Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, despite how some people just like to go to war for these type of products, none of them, and I mean absolutely none of them, are your friends. They will use you and they will abuse you, which we see a lot of that in the game industry. All they care about is your money, and that's it. So, yeah, I don't really take PR responses overly serious. I know how they operate, but this has become a volatile story online, so I thought we would at least talk about it. A more exciting story, though, is the Xbox Ally itself. It did launch this week, and there's a lot of reviews floating around online right now. And just as a heads up, from my understanding, the review units are a little bit outdated in terms of software, and that actually is important just because the Xbox full screen experience, which is really what this device is trying to sell, is a first attempt. So in other words, what I'm trying to say here is that there will be some growing pains for its software that has been reflected in a lot of the reviews, but overall, most of its reviews have come away very impressed. You can see a roundup of reviews over on Metacritic, and I averaged it out to an 80 overall score. So if you only care about scores, then there you go. But in terms of what critics are actually saying, they're claiming that the hardware itself, or at least the Xbox Ally X, is among the best options on the market, which, I mean, to be fair, is to be expected. The ROG Ally X was already one of the most premium PC gaming handhelds as is, and the Xbox Ally X is essentially the same thing, but with an Xbox coat of paint, and of course some new software, which again, the software really is the most interesting aspect or new aspect for this device, because this more or less is the future of PC Windows gaming handhelds, and potentially also a glimpse into Xbox's future for their next console. Well, in terms of the software experience, for the most part, has left reviewers impressed. Wolfden, I thought, did a great job with his review. Definitely go check his review out. And he described it as transformative. More or less, it completely changes the game for Windows-based handhelds, which honestly has been the biggest problem for these devices. The thing is that Windows just isn't built for these type of devices, but with the Xbox full screen experience, it boots into more of this Xbox UI where you can boot up all of your different games. It makes it feel more like a console experience and less like a bloated PC, which really is one of the main reasons that the Steam Deck is preferred by a lot of people, including myself. But, and this is important to understand, the Xbox full screen experience still isn't perfect. Again, there will be growing pains that has been reflected in a lot of the reviews. This is just their first attempt and is something that will improve over time, and that's why leaks earlier this year claimed that the Xbox Ally will be a beta, if you will, for their next console, which is of course rumored to be a PC console hybrid. They want to use this device to perfect this type of experience. So it's going to give them several years to iron out the kinks. But, for fans, that is something important to understand as you go into a device like this, that it's going to have to improve over time. Now, at the same time, the other complaint for the Xbox Ally is really just the price itself. The Xbox Ally X very well might be the best handheld on the market just in terms of its specs and its power, its battery, and all of that different stuff. But that also comes with a hefty price tag. $1,000 is a lot of money to pay for a handheld when you have devices like the Steam Deck and you have the Switch 2. And that's certainly going to limit its audience. So, really it's going to be up to you if you think it's worth that $1,000 price tag. Now, in terms of the base Xbox Ally, though, it is cheaper, but because of that, it also makes itself a direct competitor to the still cheaper Steam Deck. And I think because of that, reactions for the base Xbox Ally hasn't been quite as strong. Either which way, though, Xbox seems to have a winner on their hands despite some of the early growing pains. All right, now one last thing before we go, though, because it does appear that Nintendo is considering DS for their Switch Online subscription service. And this is actually really fascinating because DS will be one of their harder consoles to emulate on the Switch just because of how unique the DS is. I mean, really, it's the same problem that emulation consoles have had for years and years. Yeah, you can emulate DS and 3DS games on all of these different devices, but it just doesn't feel authentic on a single screen platform. So if Nintendo adds DS to Switch Online, it will be interesting to see how they approach it, and, well, apparently we have a good indication as to how they're at least considering it. Yeah, a new patent that was filed on October 16th was discovered online, and it details a dual-screen situation for the Nintendo Switch 2, and interestingly enough, it mentions 3 different options. One is something that they're calling a child screen. In other words, the parent screen will be the Switch 2 itself, but you can also add a child screen potentially as an add-on. So essentially, you'll be able to turn your Switch 2 into a DS through some kind of add-on screen. And the thing is that's really not unheard of for Nintendo Switch Online. I mean, you have to remember that they went out of their way to create a Virtual Boy out of all things for Switch Online, and that console was a massive flop when it originally released. So it's not exactly like that has a big audience in the first place, yet Nintendo still went the extra mile to recreate the Virtual Boy for modern audiences. So yeah, I could definitely see them doing something like this for the DS, which to this day is still their best-selling console of all time. Now, one other option this patent mentions is a single screen setup. Through this option, you won't have to buy an add-on display. Now, I will say that Hacked Switch Units already does this, but they do it in a very cool way. You can actually play DS games on the Switch through portrait mode, which makes it feel a little bit more authentic to the original hardware. But the only problem with that is that you still need an accessory to attach Joy-Cons via portrait mode. So I'm not entirely sure if Nintendo will go into that direction, but the last option that they mentioned is a switch mode, which is where you would apparently look back and forth between 2 different screens. So that would be more like, let's say, a Wii U setup. You have 2 completely separate screens. You have your TV, and then you have the tablet, or in this case, the Switch itself, which you can look down at. All this, though, is really cool, though, and this would be a massive inclusion for Switch Online. The DS has just such a huge library. It's a massively popular console as well, and I mean, I don't necessarily foresee this replacing original hardware, but it would still be an amazing option that would make DS a lot more accessible. This also paves the way for the 3DS as well, which, I mean, I feel like they will eventually get there too. When all's said and done, it kind of seems like Nintendo will add every console to their Switch Online service, and I mean, who knows? Maybe that'll even include the Wii U as another such example. Anyways, though, that's going to be this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.